Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for making the time to join the Equifax Business Transformation webinar this afternoon. My name is Rob Durham. I'm the Vice President of Operations, the Project Management Office and Transformation here at Equifax. Today's topic is going to be around keeping your data safe in the cloud. And I'm going to be joined today on this call by Leslie Stevens, who is our Chief Information Security Officer, and he's going to talk to you in considerable detail about the measures that we have put in place to make sure data is secure in the cloud. I'll open with a few comments about transformation in general and what you should be expecting from it. That'll be followed by Leslie speaking specifically about security. And then Dale Jordan will join us and talk a little bit about some of the things that you should be thinking about and working on now, and what the things that we have there to support you through the process. But before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping details. I'm going to bring Sandra on to just let you know a few of the details and how to interact with the platform. Sandra?
Super. Thank you very much, Rob, and good afternoon, everyone. You'll see our presenters today are on camera in the media player on the left side of your screen. Underneath that, you'll see a question and answer widget. Feel free to enter any questions you may have, and we'll address them throughout our session today. In the event there are too many questions to get through, we will generate an FAQ document, which we'll send out to you in the coming weeks. Our slide presentation, as always, will show in the middle of your screen. And we also have a short survey, which we'd ask you to fill out at the end of our session today. It will automatically pop up at the end of the webinar. And if you would prefer to complete the survey at a later time, you can access it by clicking on the survey icon at the bottom of your screen. To the right of that survey icon is a Contact Us button. Feel free to send us a note if you'd like further information on anything that was discussed today. Now, let's get started. Rob, back to you.
Great. Thank you, Sandra. All right. So I want to talk to you a little bit about what you should expect through the migration process and then the transformation that follows. And I think that's an important distinction to make, that there is a migration, which is essentially going to move all our customers from our legacy mainframe system to our new cloud environment. And at the time of migration, your products have been rebuilt such that they will perform exactly the way they do today. There'll be some improvements in terms of some of the functionality and user interfaces to make them easier and more friendly to deal with. But really, there's nothing for you to do at that initial stage as we move from the legacy system to the new transform system. What you will get as the immediate benefit of that is additional stability, security, and reliability. So I think those are important improvements. I think that those things are of value, but transformation really starts after that. Once you're on to the new cloud platform, that's when you're enabled to be able to take advantage of the feature and functionality that resides within the cloud platform. So what do I mean by that? So there's a number of things. First of all, the products that you will have available, or we will be able to make available to you. We can adapt existing products much more quickly to the needs of the market and the needs of our consumers in a cloud environment versus a mainframe environment. We can do that for a number of reasons. As pointed out in the second icon, that things become much more configurable in the cloud, meaning that if you're a customer who is looking to maybe get some information about your existing customer base to do some account management, so you'd like to get a list of attributes that would show you our customers, are people in your customer base past due with other people that they do business with, or have their scores materially changed over time. These will be configurable solutions that you'll be able to access in a matter of days, where currently the process around that could take, weeks or even months to deliver. So the timeliness of the data from the time you can identify a problem in your business until we can provide a solution for that or insight around that is much, much faster. The data will also be more comprehensive. So there's a number of ways that it'll become more comprehensive, not the least of which is we expect that we will have many more data contributors going forward because it will be easier to contribute data to us. The way that we take this data in and that we store it will significantly reduce data fragmentation, meaning that if you were looking up information on me, on Rob Durham, you would no longer run into the situation where there might be 2 or 3 versions of Rob Durham because the file became fragmented over time. We're able to consolidate that. For those of you that were on our last webinar, when we had Ivan Barron, our Chief Data Officer, on, you would have heard a lot about that. And we're excited about what that means to you, because the thicker the file, the richer the data, the more data there is, the better the insights and the better the decisions you can make about your existing customers or applicants seeking credit from you. We also have the ability for much greater collaboration. We will have sandboxes and areas where you can access our data and begin to play with our data and do it alongside, some of our data and analytics specialists so that we can co-create together. So I think that's a big opportunity. I touched on data ingestion already, but the way that we bring in data right now is in a fixed format for the most part. And that can be difficult or expensive for some of our contributors to meet those standards to be able to deliver data to us. The mantra that we're going to have going forward is any data in any format at any time. Clearly, you're going to need to have data that has the relevant information around the person's account information and their credit standing with you. But whether that comes in CSV files or text files or Excel files, we'll be able to accommodate all of those things and be able to ingest that data on your behalf. Speed to market means that, when I talked about this already, that as you identify a problem in your market and you work with members of our team, or you want to access the data on your own through what we've got, you will be able to do that in a much, much quicker fashion. That spans everything from adding a new score to your decisioning, to accessing attributes that you might want to use in decisioning or in account management. All of these things will be able to be done in a much more rapid form, so that when we have changes in the market, and we've certainly had a few of them in the last number of years, whether it's been the financial crisis, whether it's been oil shocks, or the current situation around our pandemic, you'll be able to access solutions to meet the needs of your customers and your business in a much faster fashion. So all of these things get enabled once you move onto the new platform. And so first step is migration, get you there, and then the world's your oyster as you can take advantage of all the things that we have to offer. Part of that, of course, is around data stewardship and data security. I think one of the things that we're excited about, and Leslie will give you much more detail on, is that, and you've heard me talk about it in previous webinars, is security is now going to be built in from the ground up. When you have older systems, such as the mainframes, we've taken extraordinary measures to make those secure, and we're regarded as one of the most secure environments anywhere. That said, those systems were not originally imagined to deal with the situations and the threats that exist today. So you're constantly bolting security on, around the edges and within the platform. This gives us the opportunity to build security, built right in, or as we would say, security from the inside out. So all of this, will allow you to, interact with us and to support your customers in a much easier, safer, more reliable, more secure environment. With that, I want to pass this to Leslie and let him get into much more of the details around the security features that we built in. Leslie?
Thanks, Rob. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to get a chance to speak with you all today. Hopefully the little journey I take you on is going to help you understand a little bit more about where we've come from, where we're heading from a cloud security perspective, and give you some, not just some assurance around it, but at least give you a chance to know who I am and know that beyond this webinar today, my team is always here and always available to help you through any of these questions and journeys beyond. So we'll make sure that connection is always on. So as we go into technology and security, I'll just skim through these. We're going to go through about 8 elements. So this is the 8 elements of Equifax's cybersecurity function. I'm not going to list these things because we're going to go through them slide by slide. But it's important. And I think everyone knows at this point, security is a layered approach, right? It's not just a thing that you do. There are multiple layers that go into every security strategy, and those will shift depending on what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're doing it, who's accessing it. Our strategy is probably similar to some that you may have, but when we're talking about it from a cloud perspective, we're going to talk about some of the differences that you'll see between that and how you have to think differently to make sure that you're keeping up with where you're heading. So in the first one, we're going to go through cloud security. The difference. Now, as I explain this, it's going to sound like cloud is different, but in many ways it isn't. And once that is grasped, it makes understanding how you secure cloud easy, I guess, to an extent, right? It's doable. It's not different to such an extent that it cannot be accomplished. You just have to alter your strategy slightly. So I'll go through these little line by line to give you a sort of a sense. From an inventory perspective, you think of a classical data center. You have fixed servers, fixed firewalls. These are actual devices that you procure. Someone manages and maintains. Wires are plugged in. When you get into the cloud, you don't have that. So your cloud provider deals with all of that. It's still a data center. It's the exact same thing. You just no longer worry about the physical components of it. Everything then becomes digital to you. So you are deploying, as we'll go through these, everything is a little bit more digital. It's a little less on-premise. Therefore, the way you think about the cloud, it can explode on you in many ways. So you can stand up 100 servers in a day. Whereas on premise, you're going to have to procure 100 servers, which can take months, and you're going to have to configure them, deploy them. So it just speeds things up, but it's still the same thing conceptually. What you account for in that sense is speed. From a network perspective, again, all fixed hardware versus now everything is variable and software defined. So, it's the same, if that makes sense. So from a hardware component, you're still doing things from a software-based perspective in almost all of those cases. What you're taking out of the equation is the hardware component. I'm moving my hands here, so that you're just really thinking about that variable software-defined element of it. So these can be put in place very quickly. It's the simplest standing one up. Again, there's no procurement, so you can react quickly as well. So it's quite a positive thing. From a data perspective, it's all centralized and managed in a data center. It really is in the cloud to an extent as well. But what's different is your physical assets in a data center, it physically exists somewhere and someone is managing those assets, and there's specialists to ensure everything is, you have control over that to some extent. Once you get into the cloud, it's distributed. So your data is still there. It's still protected. You don't lose any of that protection. But again, you have to think about it differently. There's no longer a data center specialist you would talk to about your backups, right? There's a lot of this is now just being done in-house, and it's distributed across a number of generalists who will take care of this for you. So you have to rethink how you will apply yourself to the cloud. Monitoring, again, defined and centralized versus multiple sources, multiple syncs. What that really means is when you have 10 servers, you're monitoring 10 servers. But if you can suddenly stand up another 100, now you have to figure out, well, I had 10 yesterday, I have 110 today. How do I make sure that I'm monitoring 110, 100 of which I didn't know I had up yesterday? And it isn't quite as scary as that sounds, but again, it's the way of thinking. You're not looking at a necessarily fixed state until you procure more. You're looking at an environment that grows based on the business need. So you need to grow your security based on the business need almost in real time, which is what we'll go through here as well. And then from a response, if there were to be an incident, you just sort of change your concept around that as well. So instead of having physical servers that you'll box off, you have assets that you will slip in a bag and someone will do forensics on. You're not necessarily going to get access to that kind of stuff at the cloud provider, but you do still have access to everything else. So it's working out how to tie all that together. And again, thinking about your incident response in a different way. As we slip through, I will actually go through each of these steps, just sort of explain them. And I'm not going to do that on every slide because no one likes the list, but this list is actually quite important. It's a how do companies effectively protect clouds. And a lot of this is sort of what we're doing as well to tie everything together. What it requires is development of a high-level comprehensive framework. So you have to set the terms for your business. And if you think of the classic data center model, so how we've typically deployed ourselves, you go to IT. IT has the operating terms. They do what they do. Security will audit them or work within them to make sure things sort of align. But essentially, it's very much controlled to set groups. When you get into the cloud, as we mentioned earlier, there's a lot more generalists that are in play here. There's a lot more roles that will participate in this process that will manage data and applications, and it can expand quite quickly. So you need to make sure that you have a very, very defined and comprehensive framework. Everyone has to know the boundaries with which they're operating within. When we say about the second part, which is, bake security in, shift left, that's one of those fun terms. It just means that instead of waiting till the end to do what you need to do, anything you can move earlier in the software development lifecycle process, you do so. So instead of figuring out if you'll need web application firewalls, for example, in the later stages as you're ready to deploy, you'll figure that out through the design phase, not that we never did that before, and you'll make sure that that's part of the planning, part of the build, part of the whole process. So as early as possible means you're less likely to miss it later. With cloud, that becomes incredibly important. So it's very quick, as we mentioned. It's not, you don't have the weeks or months for IBM to get you the server you ordered and then put it in a rack and then plug everything in. Then you start deploying. Someone can spin up a machine or a virtual instance in a minute or seconds, depending on how big or how interactive that is. And it can get out of hand quickly if you're not thinking about security at the earliest stage. So there has to be terms that people know how to operate within. Creating policies represented as code. This early on in this process, we always used to say that your policies become executable in the cloud. The easier way to say that, and if you're not familiar with it, is cloud is very much black and white. So you can either do something or you can't do something. That's how it's supposed to be. So someone can either access data or they cannot. If they cannot access this data, the method to do it shouldn't exist. So what you have to plan for is you have to cover every possible angle that something could happen. So you really do have to, people go into, role-based groups, and in those groups, they have very explicit permissions. And if they're not supposed to have something, it's very explicitly stated that they are not to have access to that. Not that we'll assume that they won't, and not that we ever assumed when it was from an on-prem perspective. But again, in the cloud, this can become much bigger risk much more quickly if you're not much more explicit about it. So you really want to be looking at your policies that are code-based. So when you deploy a server, you can deploy it as code. So it is automatically run up. People don't have too much of an opportunity to interact with it. You have gold images that are built the way you need them to be built, and you have very limited ability for people to create or spin up things that you don't want them to. So a lot of that will bake into it as well. There's also measuring of compliance. So if you set all these policies and you know what people should and shouldn't do, then you need to be monitoring in real time if they can or can't do them. Because as stated before, it changes. So whereas in the past, if you think of a typical Active Directory, someone in, let's say, the UK, because I'm going for just a completely different market, just for perspective, let's say they are not supposed to have access to a particular series of applications. And if they were to have access, it's only to be read level, and they can't access the internet, whatever we'd like it to be from that perspective. If any of that goes off track, you need to know it in real time so you can correct it and close the gap. So if you don't, again, just thinking about going from 10 servers to 110 in a day, then your risk multiplies by that factor as well if you haven't closed these gaps. So real-time policy compliance, measuring of that is absolutely critical. And then understanding where you need to put your effort, because just as you can scale the number of systems, you can scale the number of risks, and you can't, as bad as this may sound, as I stated up front, you can't tackle everything. It's impossible. You need to know that you're tackling the right stuff. So you're going to get a lot of information, just like when you first deploy a security incident event management system. A ton of logs are going to come in, a ton of information is going to come in. You need to figure out where to put your effort to make sure that you're securing where you need to secure. And there's a lot of learning that will go into that. Some things that will be classified as critical high in a cloud environment are not, depending on depending on how you've deployed the rest of your environment. So it's learning to understand that so you can shape your response and ensure that you're not just drowning people with information, because it can scale up very quickly in that sense. And then also correcting a design time. So we'll go into this sort of a little bit later, but you have to have very firm gates, and I'm sure everyone does in terms of deploying. But once you open the cloud gate, and once your IT teams and your infrastructure teams can get into the cloud, they can deploy in the cloud very, very quickly, unless there are overt, explicit control gates that will specify what they can and cannot do and what the expectations are for them when they do try to do something. And I cannot stress enough how this has been probably one of the biggest work efforts for us, is not just putting it in place, because getting it in place was easy, but it's getting it to work in a way that doesn't throttle the business, but enables it in the most secure way possible. And it's been an amazing journey just tying those teams together to get that kind of lift. But it is that of number 5 for me, having that gate, which is very much about people and very not about cloud, is valuable even if you're not in the cloud. But in the cloud, it becomes so much more important. And 1 second here, because I think my VPN is going to pick the perfect time to kick out. So give me 1 second. We're going to also talk about automatically remediate noncompliance. So again, that's, everything's maturity from a cloud perspective. So, you get into a point where there are things that you will be able to automatically remediate just through your application of cloud policies. And then other things you're looking at, do you need different technology to make this done? Can you automatically deploy patches? Can you have that kick in and automatically spin up a UAT in an MP environment for, a production environment, and then have that sort of, push through the patch process into production? So there's just ways to conceive of how you can do things differently in the cloud, and then figuring out how to apply that depending on your business. Quick anomaly detection, again, if you don't find it early, it can get out of hand quickly. And then penetration testing and the bug bounty programs, which we will talk about the bug bounty programs a lot more in a few minutes. And I'm just going to take 1 second, because as I say, I think we have VPN, which I'm sure we all do, but from a security perspective, I appreciate this, but it's about to take me offline for 1 second, so I do apologize. Timing is not optimal. It's just doing a quick reset. Should that happen, I will be right back in 1 second. I apologize. As we go to the next one, we'll be talking about cloud control. No way to get that through there. Okay, we're good. So from a cloud
I think we may have lost Leslie for a minute. I'm sure he'll return in a second as he resets his VPN. In the meantime, let me step in for a moment and talk to you a little bit about cloud control. I think the important things here are the red bullet points on the right-hand side around standards and best practice, around leading security technologies, and the fact that we've got a national cyber security center where we practice all of the steps that that Leslie was just sort of talking you through on the previous slide. In terms of what the customer cloud program looks like, we do have, of course, a third-party risk management challenge, which means that we have people who are constantly, working on our environment and working with us to ensure that the policies and the practices that we have put in place are consistently tested and audited by third parties to make sure that we are, continuing to live to the program. Les, have you rejoined us?
I have. And the irony is security doesn't wait for anyone, even the head of security for the company. So for the country at least. So anyway, I'll get back into this. I know I've cut a little time there and I apologize, but nothing like you can pick up in a presentation.
I just covered a couple of slides less, and we're just over on, as you'll see, on customer cloud program.
Customer cloud program? Over here? Great. Awesome. Yeah. So this is more from how are we making this work for you? So, if we're moving to the cloud, that's our transformation effort. But, much for this, the point of this webinar and a lot of the questions that we'll get around cloud is this is a huge change. It's a huge change for any company. So how are we doing this in a way that works for our customers as well? How are we factoring them into the discussion? For those of you who are familiar with third-party risk management, which is having your audit teams or a third-party audit team come out and audit your vendors, or us in this particular case, your third parties, it's expensive. We would typically deem it low assurance because you can only find out what you can find out in that particular audit. We are very transparent, but not all companies are. So we still think from a, what if scenario, how can we be more transparent about that? And at the end of the day, it's a compliance checkbox. Part of what we did as we went through this cloud transformation program was look for ways to build in transparency. So, again, we go back to those insight into current control posture. So when we look at the 450 plus controls that we have over all the accounts that we have, we're able to talk about that as part of audits when clients do come into the equation. But we're also doing things very differently. So if I look at it from a Canada perspective, some of you will be familiar with this depending on if you're part of it, and for others, you're more than welcome to join. We have a third party conducted every other year. So this is one of the conducted years where a third party will come in and audit Equifax on behalf of our clients who participate. And our clients get to develop the question scope. So you would normally send in your audit teams, you have your questions to make sure that we're answering the questions you want, but are also factoring in, how much it costs you to ask those questions, what kind of insights you're able to get, and the fact that not all audit teams are built equally. We're bringing in our big clients, small clients, whoever's able to participate in this. So if you're interested, you can reach out after the session. We'll see if we can work into this year's audit. And this is a very expensive report that we have a third party conduct. We pay the bill, they do the work. You sign an agreement with them to receive the audit. So it gives you a lot of insight into what we're doing and how we're doing it. And you will see more and more, the more we're into the cloud, the more this transformation program takes place, you will start to see just how much we're doing to be transparent. And it is just absolutely critical that we do this. There's nothing more important, because again, we need you to feel secure about how we're doing this. And if we're doing it right, which we know we are, then it's something we can have a healthy conversation about. So, that's part of our control program from a customer perspective. It'll get us into cloud assurance, and I'm going to speed up a little just because, again, I know I've burned through some of my time with that fun VPN experiment I wanted to show you specifically as part of this. So data-centric cloud assurance platform. It's great to say we have policies and standards and that we do scans, but to get assurance, metrics are always good. KPIs are good. We all look for them in everything that we do. So we have 1,500 plus cloud accounts, right? It's 3 major cloud providers, 450 controls are monitored in real time. What we use this for, again, as I mentioned earlier, is prioritization. And it's to help establish a security-first culture. So we will get into that a little bit more as we go through this presentation when we talk about how we've engaged our teams and our people. But it does come back to that architecture perspective. So knowing still that we have these gates and these controls, even once something is deployed and goes through the gates and goes through the architecture reviews and we get it out the door before it can even get into production, all of this stuff is checked on a regular and ongoing basis in real time. And the prioritization of effort to make sure that what's going out is secure and is done right to the standards that we've set forces that security first culture. And again, it's only possible. We have a lot of stuff, which I'll take you through, penetration tests, code scans, everything, but it's sort of putting it in there, making sure that people are thinking about this and they don't have a choice to do it any other way. And there's just been a huge shift, a wonderful shift at this company in terms of that. Being in security, I love it because, I like to be the center of attention. But it's in a positive way, right? Is that people are now thinking differently. And again, I'll show you a little bit more as we go through on how we've done that. Incident response, threat intelligence. This is some of the fun stuff. When we talk about the $1.5 billion investment, these are some of the tangibles that I can go through with you. So we spent about $5 million setting up a security operations center. We always had one. We made it pretty, and we put a lot more people in it. So you're looking at 24/7. We have a CERT team, so cyber incident response. Again, we always have retainers with, Mandiant, so our third party, but we have the ability in-house to do a lot of this stuff. Threat intel, vulnerability management. I could read through them, but we're very, very active in this. It's not just a helpline that you call if something's not working. These are active intelligence teams that are constantly working to test our perimeter, protect our perimeter, and sort of make sure that our presence is secure as we're out there. These are some of the key things that we'll go through. And, one of them I mentioned earlier, and I'll touch on here, which would be the HackerOne program, which has just been phenomenal. But I'll start from a sort of a clockwise position of the automated vulnerability scanning. We use Qualys and Rapid7 for general vulnerability scanning, C3M and Prism from our cloud compliance scanning perspective. And you'll notice there's a doubling when it comes to our scans. So, one of those things we've identified, and I think not that we made it up, but a lot of companies are doing it, is that one scanner will not necessarily pick up the same things as another scanner. It might get 90% the same, you might get a 10% variance. So the more you're running, even though it costs more, the more you're picking up. So, we're doubling wherever we can to make sure that we're covering the widest gamut possible to keep, constantly looking for anything to be a threat or a vulnerability from, a patch perspective or policy compliance perspective. Then we get down to our GTVM alerts. There is a very aggressive process to ensure that any patches, especially anything critical and high, is remediated in a time frame that is so tight and fast that the opportunity for someone to exploit it is limited or zero. And we've had, I think in the last year, there have been 3 alerts actually listed here. So the 3 alerts, these would have been critical, and they were all remediated within 24 hours. And I've been on these lines. These are 24-hour lines. Everyone stays on until it's done. So, when Rob says that we're regarded as one of the best, we take this so seriously that it's what we do. When it comes up, it's something that we do, and we do it until it's done, and no one rests. We have red teams. So again, we have third parties that will also do penetration testing depending on market app or if it's something we need from just adding to it. The reason we do that is because we pen test basically everything. So everything gets it at least annually. And this is where we're looking for informed threat hunting within our application parameters or within the application itself, depending on which strategy we're using, depending on which application. But it's sort of a constant attack on ourselves to find out if we have any challenges or gaps beyond just the scans. It's a huge investment of time and effort, and it is absolutely executed upon, if we were to find anything. To go one step further, and this is one I love, we have we call it the hunting program. So this is HackerOne. It's a third party that we work with. When you think about being secure in your security posture, actually asking people who are capable to test it for you, and that you will reward them if they find problems that you have to fix, is bold. And it's something that we've done. So in 2020 alone, we paid out about $75,000 in bounties on about 200. Again, don't think of these as critical vulnerabilities that could have led to a massive incident, but it's anything, whether it be something we left on a web page and we just don't need the code there, but it was there anyway. Clean it. That way you don't have something that could become a problem later. So we're actively asking people out in the market, so whether they be hackers themselves, whether they be just security professionals who are looking to keep us all honest, we're asking them to, and we're rewarding them if they find something. So it's a very accountable program. It's been very successful. It's something we've enjoyed just getting involved into. And then the continuous surface testing. So, just looking for anything essentially. So these teams are always working, always on. 24/7 is very real. We don't sleep because we know that the attacks don't sleep. And once you get into cloud, that doesn't change. So it's a continuation of that effort. That's something that we've always been quite strong in, but it just as everyone is maturing and getting even stronger as we go forward. Getting to cyber threat intelligence, again, I won't grocery list these because I know we're just sort of working through time here. But again, we talked about HackerOne. Some of the stuff we do is targeted collection operations. We have people who speak all the right languages to look in all the right forums to find out all the right threats. We're heavy in the industry whereby we're sharing intelligence. So it's one team globally, not just one team at Equifax. It's a one team global risk, right? The threats that put us at risk, put everyone at risk, puts our third parties at risk and our clients at risk. So our cyber team is very active in the industry, and we're always sharing our intelligence and always taking in intelligence and always making sure that we're not just getting it and pushing it on, that we're doing something with it. I don't think anyone just gets it, but being open to and capable of actioning all the intelligence that comes in is, from my perspective, impressive. And speaking from an Equifax stance, I know how hard these teams work and how much that they bring to the industry. So, it's always a pleasure working with them. Identity and access management. This is one I do want to spend a minute on. And again, cognizant of time. When you get into the cloud, and I come back to a slide we mentioned earlier, it's 1,500 accounts across, 3 cloud providers. It's a lot of accounts. So when you look at the cloud, and it's no longer about getting access to a physical server, now it's about just getting access to the cloud and what your particular role is capable of doing in the cloud, you have to get very, very clear on things like privileged access management. Thinking about what damage one account could do if it was led into the wrong area, thinking about what a person could do if they had access to the wrong data. So again, we always work with a zero trust policy from a security perspective. We assume the risk is there, so we act on it. From an identity and access management perspective, we have put just an incredible amount of effort into this. It actually won an award in 2019, and that was just in the first few rounds of this. Where it's gotten only better since then. But it's very much, again, I won't read through all the statistics, but as you just saw, I was kicked out and couldn't come back in until I went through multiple factors authentication. So there's just been a heightened emphasis on ensuring, as we always should, that people can only do what they're supposed to do. And if you think of the layers of control to that, it's policy-based, executable policy-based in our cloud environments by role. And then it's also role-based in terms of our control of those roles. So that's not just in the cloud environments they can touch, it's in the roles in themselves. It even includes things like behavioral analytics. We put a lot of emphasis on our people in a very positive way. Like they enable us in so many ways. And we just want to make sure that they have the opportunity to do that where they should, essentially. So very, very important from a cloud perspective. I could not stress enough how important that is in a cloud environment. Actually, I will stress it. If you were moving into the cloud, just know that, again, as we said earlier, once you let people into your cloud space, every gap can exponentially increase in risk if you're not controlling at every potential opportunity. That comes especially back to identity and access management, especially back to policy-based execution. So very, very important things to think about above and beyond just the technologies we have to keep us honest. So training and awareness, this is continuous. Read as I speak if you want to, but this will be quick. We have changed in many ways how we do training awareness. Like, we've always done phishing campaigns. We've always done security awareness. They're great security awareness programs. We always do annual security awareness training, bring everyone on board. But we've gone to new levels. So we put a ton of time and effort into how we can educate people and grow them throughout the year. So we did a few iterations of that, whether it was monthly security awareness training on particular themes, whether it was messages, are people going to read those? But it's critical that just saying that people are always your greatest weakness and your greatest strength isn't enough. So we put, an incredible amount of weight on this. I won't go into the specifics because I don't even know if I can from a human resource perspective, but we've made it absolutely critical to all employees that there is no question whether or not training and awareness from a security perspective and keeping that first is vital to their job. But we've also done it in very, very healthy ways. And I think the next slide will take us through that, which is our security snapshot. Now, looking at those slides, little dials and stuff may not tell you a lot right now, but if you can imagine that every single employee in the company gets a security snapshot on a monthly basis, and in some cases a quarterly basis, depending on what you've done in the month, what you've done in the quarter. This looks at whether or not they have responded adequately to our internal phishing emails. This looks at whether or not they completed our security awareness training and how quickly they did it versus the timeline. It looks at whether or not they're doing the things that we need them to do, and it lets them know how they're doing versus their peers and versus their historical performance. And this is actually part of goal setting for all of our employees. They have to have a goal that perpetuates a positive security first culture. So, these become, at the end of the year, did you do it? Because it matters. And throughout the year, we're going to keep you honest through our controls, but we're also going to check in with you on a regular basis. This isn't a once a year conversation. This is an all year conversation. And just as cloud can increase exponentially in number of servers, the amount of times we need to touch our people and keep them, aware of the security expectations has to increase as well. And we've absolutely tick that up. We don't just trust the technology. It's human interaction is always critical in this too. Application security, and again, I'll be quick on this one. SDLC, right? So software development lifecycle. This is really about shift left, but the highlighted pieces here So the engineering handbook, security gate, and open source library management are important. So we'll talk about those quickly. There is a defined engineering handbook. It talks about how essentially everything should be engineered and done. The security gate process is really our architecture review panel, although that's sort of listed separately here. And that's ensuring that there is a measured state where we will validate that the handbook was met, that the objectives were met. But the third piece, rather, the open source library management, we use, so I have a question popping up there. So we use third-party software, right? Everyone does. So as we build stuff, there are components that every company uses, they bring in that's open source to help make things work, or as middlewares, whatever it be to enable the system, the application, the platform, whatever that is. But that's done so fast. And a common gap is whether or not people are tracked. Tracking the open source code that they have in their environments. Hello? Okay, so assuming you can all still hear me, I'm seeing the chat. Sorry, I apologize. There was a question of whether or not I was still online. So data privacy and security, I think, is where we clicked through to. Did we get there? We did. All right, so again, this one I'll touch on very, very high level. Data privacy and security is fundamental. It's never been an option for us. I wouldn't even say what's changed. What you're able to do in the cloud is phenomenal in this particular case. As you deploy everything in the cloud, think back to that. Every region is going to have its own data center with its own servers and its own applications. Now think about, how do you see all of that? How do you track all of that? Well, now you come back to, we're dropping people at things. Now you come back to, in a cloud perspective, you can just bring it all together. And again, I won't say necessarily easier, but the whole point of cloud is scale, right? So if you need a lot more power to get it done, you can get a lot more power to get it done. If you need asset management or app management, whatever it would be, you have your CMDBs or your asset databases that track where everything is deployed within projects within each region, and the type of assets they are. If you follow the proper architecture review, as you deploy where you're putting sensitive information. There's just so many different ways to manage this. But from a data protection perspective, the cloud is, it's game-changing in the best possible ways. From a security perspective, I am beyond excited about this transformation because it's going to take us to a point where, while we were phenomenal where we were, it really is next level and game-changing. And I could not be happier to be here than anywhere else for what we're going to be able to do in the years to come. With that, I will stop. If there are any questions, I assume everyone can still see me. It's tough without an audience to view.
Yes, we can definitely see you.
Perfect. I had the hand motion. So I'm absolutely open to questions. And again, anytime you want to talk beyond this call, my email, my phone number, everything's always open to you. We'll make sure that's provided to you after the fact. I will field any question you have. Transparency isn't just a statement. It's something we absolutely believe in. This is a partnership, and we're going to do this with you. So.
Leslie, I do have one quick question. Can you explain what NIST is? I've seen it in earlier webinars. It's been mentioned a lot.
Yeah. So just the National Institute of Security and Technology. It's a framework out of the U.S. There's several frameworks out of the U.S. From our perspective, and I touched on, I think it was right when I was about to lose my connection. So, historically, we're an ISO 27001 ISMS, Information Security Management System shop, and we still do ISO 27001, still incredibly valuable. As we shifted to the cloud, we reworked all of our policies and standards into technical controls and requirements. So one thing I didn't really get to touch on in this presentation, and again, I think it's because where I got cut, I didn't sort of jump into it. We talked about building that better framework. One of the things that you get into with NIST is very specific controls and expectations. So talking about executable policies, now we're talking about implementable guidance. So it's not necessarily saying that we'll use this cipher, but it is saying what expectation of cipher you will use, like, what quality, what level of encryption you require for stuff. But it's very, very granular. So again, we reworked, and this is a massive project. If anyone's ever done anything like this, it's just a ton of work to take who we were as a security organization and then remap it to NIST and beyond, so that it was not just applicable from a cloud perspective, but that it was measurable, right? So NIST is a benchmarking technique, right? So if we're following NIST, it also gives us the opportunity to benchmark against peers in the industry. So there's just a ton of value there, but that's what it stands for. It's just the National Institute of Security and Technology, I believe. But we use a particular framework. It's the cybersecurity framework.
Okay, I think we can proceed, and we'll see if some more questions come in as we go. Dale, would you like to proceed?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Les. That was a great and informative information security, so I really appreciate the knowledge share that you had for us and the entire audience. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to talk to you about the next steps within your client migration journey. So I want to walk you through some of the key milestones and assessments that we have to collaborate together and for us to help you guide through your migration journey ahead. So taking a look very high level of our transformation roadmap in 2021, we have some key objectives that we're working in collaborative form with you. So as you probably have heard, our endpoint migration has now begun, and that's the premise of that migration is specifically focusing in on how you securely connect to Equifax. Not so much schema, but how the digital handshake works. So we've created our developer portal where you'll be able to log in, and this simply only impacts our system-to-system clients. So if you access our data via system-to-system method, you're going to be encompassing a journey within our developer portal. So we're very pleased to announce that that was live as of a few weeks ago. Once we have that, we have our endpoint end-to-end testing that we're going to be fulfilling. And then as we slowly get through that, the validation of those testing results to make sure that everybody understands and feels validated about our new platform and the data that is going to be securely formed in our cloud environment. In July of this year, we will be starting our customer migrations. That's when we're going to be beginning, and we'll be reaching out to our clients that are impacted just to say that they're going to be fast adapters of our new platform and seeing how they will have an opportunity to see what the value propositions and all the support collaterals that we have for them on our new platform. As we gear into September, the key milestone there is that is, you guys would have probably already have received our sunset notification reminders. So those are our products that we will no longer be supporting on our new Data Fabric platform, but we are pleased to offer you our replacement solution. So by September, we would like for all of our clients to be off their sunset product and onto our replacement solution. And then as we gear towards the end of the year, the endpoint migration that I first alluded to in the roadmap, that we will be decommissioning all our legacy protocols in October. And of course, by December of the end of this year, our customer migrations for all of our clients will be completed, and life on Data Fabric will start in Jan 2022. So what does the Equifax product transformation look for you? A key part of this process will be partnering with our customers, you, to help ensure that you have the right solutions to meet your business needs, as well as the latest innovative products that will help support your needs for growth and future growth. So basically what's that mean is that we're sunsetting our products that are no longer we see valid in the market, but we'll be looking to rebuild them to understand the problem that they've solved. And then for upgraded products, those are going to be the vast majority of our new products that we're looking to innovate and be more robust within your credit adjudication platforms, as well as our Equifax product portfolio. So when we're talking about our Equifax product transformation, those are the classifications that I alluded to in our timelines with respect to our sunset products and our replacement solutions. And for the Equifax, for our endpoint migration, as I alluded to before, our developer portal is live, and we couldn't be more happier to have such a dynamic and secure web portal available for you. So, like I said, if you're on the system-to-system access mode to access our data, you'll be receiving an invite from our communications team as well as myself, outlining what that journey entails. So you'll be able to log into that portal, update your protocols, and then adapt to our new security protocols on the new Data Fabric platform. So we're very excited for that. So please be looking out for that as well. And then if you're not accessing our data via system to system and you're using our e-commerce platform or our web portal, don't worry. We haven't forgotten about you. From there, we are modernizing our layout and design. And what's that mean is that you'll be able to still log into our web portal, still access the data and the products that you see, except if you have a sunset product. That product will be replaced. But there'll be very little or to no changes required. So day one, you'll be able to log into the portal. Day two on the new platform, it's still the same portal, but with the updated products that you'll have. Additionally, we're going to be introducing some more security measures to that, like the two-factor authentication, which just allows you to do, for the first time you log into the new portal, we'll ask you to enter a text code or a security measured authenticator that will allow you to place it. So the experience will be very simple on the web portal side, not that complex from the system-to-system side within our developer portal. And lastly, we're here to help. As we gear towards any of the migrations that we have, will be encompassing together with respect to our product replacements, our endpoint migration, we're continuing here to collaborate with you and help guide you through your journey. Within the presentation, you will see our support channels. Please do not hesitate to wrap up to send us an email and suggest any questions that you might have. And our team is dedicated to support you through your migration journey. So I'll stop right there to see if there's any questions.
Okay, I do have one question for Dale. Dale, we are a small brokerage firm, and we obtain credit reports through a third-party platform. Is there anything we need to do in terms of change, or will that be done for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Jacqueline. So for those ones, your endpoint journey will be little to none, because we will be working with the third-party vendors to make sure that they're already securitized within their endpoint. The request that you might have to look at a little bit more deeper is your product assessment. So if you're subscribing to one of our products that is going to be sunsetted or upgraded, you'll be activated to a new replacement solution. So for those instances, you might have to do updates to your scorecards and your score cutoffs if you're system to system. If you're accessing the credit report via the system, you'll just notice that when you log into the web portal, you'll see a brand new score. And of course, we're going to be sending all of our supporting score validation and score material reference to all of our clients so they can see the difference between their sunset score and their replacement score and the value add that they get. So those would be odds charts, KS values, performance intervals, so that you're comfortable with the replacement solution and the value proposition that it brings to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dale. That was great.
Awesome.
Rob, can I pass that back over to you? I think we're pretty good right now.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that sort of brings us to the conclusion of what we wanted to discuss with you today. So I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for joining. I would say that I hope you found it beneficial, and I hope you found it the fact that the thoroughness of the framework that Leslie went through, and just how seriously we take security at Equifax. It is central to everything that we do, and it is something that we focus in on intently. whether it's in our systems, our processes, or with our people. It is a very comprehensive and holistic framework that we put in place to secure, the data that you share with us and the data of Canadian consumers. So with that, I think we'll bring it to an end. Thank you very much for your time. And I think the next one we're going to do is in about a month's time, where we're going to delve a little bit more into some of the endpoints and things that you might want to know about that, building on what Dale just mentioned a few minutes ago. All right. Hope everybody has a great day. And again, thank you for your time. Goodbye.